can get that to the like exactly when it goes live.
Good to go.
Good to go.
Okay, let's see if this actually worked right. Sorry it's taken us so long to get up here, folks. I guess I probably should wait to say this because this will only matter to the people who've been waiting to watch live. And they're not in here
that's
yet.
very true. That's very true. My name and get up is an homage to Rachel Tobias, who had one of the best and just funniest and meanest burns. She said that Matt and Steve remind me of Jay and Silent Bob, except I'm still waiting for Steve to say something profound.
Oh my God.
It's fucking nasty. I've maybe never talked to her before. It makes it even better. The only person I know who could say something that funny and mean is like my mom. It's the only other person that could be that funny and mean. That was fucking hilarious.
She fucking roasted you.
It was incredible.
Oh man, that's fantastic. Whoa, shout out Caleb Brown. He says he's doing a podcast with Jason tonight. That's awesome.
Ooh.
That's a good reason to not make it for the whole live stream. I can accept that.
Damn.
Well, it looks like everything's working out the way it was supposed to. So I was very worried that it wouldn't, but it looks like it is. So sorry everybody that it took us so long to get live. It was Steven was having issues with his get up. Everything on his end was breaking down, and then one thing after another. This is just if you've listened to this show or you followed us for any length of time, you know that if we say we're going to be live at a certain time, you should probably show up about a half hour after.
I tried so hard. I left like where I was working early just to set up and like be ready, be like early and stuff. And still no.
It is.
I was thinking of something just now. I can't remember what it was. It was going to be shit. Damn, man.
Isn't it amazing how your brain can do that?
Yeah, it did it. Like the first time, yes, we did. We recorded with Buck Johnson yesterday. In like, I did the whole podcast. I did like 2 of them, like in my house before we recorded, and it was the first question that he asked me, and I was just talking at the camera, and I'm talking, and I just go, I don't remember what you asked me. I just after like a half hour, I just could not fucking remember what you asked me.
That's just like for people who've never done this before, who've never just like sat here and just like talked, especially through a camera to like to other people, like it's very different than just having a conversation with someone. It's very unnatural. And your brain, at least for me, my brain does a lot of meta stuff with me while I'm like, my brain like thinks about thinking, and it like listens to the words that I'm saying and like messes around with them in my head and everything. So it's like my brain is doing all kinds of crazy things while I'm sitting here trying to carry on a conversation. So every once in a while, it's just like hard drive wipe, complete reset.
You're like trying to anticipate the chord changes of like a jazz solo, and you're like, oh, I could do this, and then just like, but it's just like, no, you have to be doing something also right now. If you want to help your focus, and I know that all of you out there have what?
That's just very, very, very good segue.
Segue to what?
I don't know. I was just kind of thinking it seemed like a segue. It was just kind of, I've got a good nose for segues. I smell them when they're coming.
I forget what I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
we should have an awkward silence
talk about the sponsor. Anyway, I was artfully setting up a segue, obviously. If you want to improve focus, why don't you do what we're going to tell you to do and head over to palomaverdecbd.com. Visit the website of our good friends Carlos and Vanessa Avalar and behold their cornucopia of CBD products. See, what was happening in my mind right there is I was thinking, how do you say cornucopia in Spanish?
Probably cornucopia.
Probably. Their cornucopia of CBD products. The highlight of which, by the way, are the gummies that come in pink lemonade. Not for any other reason other than the fact that they're pink lemonade. And your boy Steve, I don't know if you would have guessed this about me, but a man who only wears spaghetti strap tank tops. But I'm a big fan of pink lemonade. And once you put your order together, you can save 25% by using promo code king at checkout. That's palomaverdecbd.com.
Very nicely done.
Thank you.
Cornucopia in Spanish. Cuerno de la abundancia.
That's one of those fucking words that in Spanish, no one says that shit.
Yeah, something of abundance.
They say some other shit. Yeah. If anyone knows in the chat, please.
Horn of abundance.
Man, a fucking John Hartman would know. John Hartman would know what they really say.
Yeah, does John Hartman speak Spanish?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We're gonna do a live reading of how to win friends and influence people
in Spanish.
He's gonna do it in Spanish. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you're gonna like have a conversation, but you're gonna be speaking English and he's gonna be speaking Spanish, and
yep.
You actually have no idea what each other's talking about, but
we're preparing for the new world. I don't know how this person is having a conversation with Jason Stapleton or doing a podcast with Jason Stapleton, but I'm going to start a new podcast. And it's going to be one episode, one guest, Jason Stapleton. It's going to be called, I don't know, what do you want to talk about?
He's going to have one episode because he's going to come kill you when he's done.
Just through the fucking window. Like he's still in California. Just like within the first like minute, he's just like over here doing calculations. He's like, fuck, the curvature of the earth. You know.
Your poor cat gets caught in the crossfire. Oh no, Jason blocked Jose.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Jason's like I've become very, very quick with the block finger. He just he hops on it. So poor Jose got blocked. I'll tell him to unblock you, and we'll see if I can't guarantee that he will, but I'll tell him to.
Nah, I don't. Yeah, he's not. He's not gonna do it. I know my Jace.
Jace. So here's a little thing to contemplate. Let me do a screen share here. Shit, which one is it? Okay, this one here. All right, so if I can zoom this in here. Okay, yeah. So there's this article. Oh, it's not going to let me zoom in on it. All right, whatever. So hopefully you guys can read this. So this chick posted this link. It's this article she wrote on unheard.com. It said, because I haven't been canceled yet this year, this week I argue that Satanism is on its way to becoming America's established religion. Huh. Never would have guessed. Never would have. Couldn't possibly have fathomed it. But she's talking about it as if it's a good thing. So then just a few assorted other headlines that I saw. First one is scientists want to build Mars bases out of human blood bricks. So that's a fun fact. And then the Evangelical Lutheran Church appointed an openly transgender person named Megan Rohrer as bishop for the first time in U.S. history on Sunday. There's another fun fact. And Mel Gibson says there's a sickness in the church. What?
I was wondering if they could appoint an openly. This might be a supporting listener's joke. Fuck. I was just wondering, what was her name? What was his or her name again?
Megan Rohrer.
Okay, I was just wondering if they were just going to play the diversity thing. If maybe they could check a box on getting an employee of a particular ethnicity to say that name. I wouldn't. I'll let people speculate what ethnicity it might be. I mean, I don't have one in mind in particular, but if I think one later, I'll put it in the supporting listeners group.
One thing I've always gotten a big kick out of with Michael Malice, he said he didn't do this on purpose, but he has his book he wrote about North Korea.
Yeah.
And it's called Dear Reader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyways.
So good. So good. So good. Yeah. Yeah. Michael Malice not doing something on purpose. Yeah.
He always plays dumb whenever people ask him about it.
Yeah.
So this last one here, Mel Gibson is like genuinely, like, the man's got his finger on the pulse of the I don't know, the spiritual world, I guess you would say.
And his significant others oftentimes. Maybe more than maybe
More than
4 or
just
5 of them too. Yeah.
simultaneously. This video was kind of funny that someone posted. He's kind of ranting a little bit, but he's very, very coherent. But he was obviously multiple glasses deep. He was very much he was on some vodka or something like that. So he said,
You think he drinks?
"Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely." If you watch the video, you can tell he definitely does.
Yeah.
Either that or he had a stroke. So he said there's a sickness in the church, almost as if a parallel counterfeit church was set up to eclipse the real one. Just kind of some interesting little data points. If you put them all together, I think it should tell you a story. And then hold on, what was the other thing that I wanted to? I had one other thing open that I was going to share, but now I don't know what happened to it.
Jason's rich. Do you think that he is like connected enough that he could get Nicki Minaj on Wealth, Power, and Influence?
Well, see, the problem is for Jason is he has me getting people on the show. I'm the one who's doing that. So the question is, do I have the pull to get Nicki Minaj? And the answer is probably not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would.
No. But do you think Jace picked up his cell phone, like he could make it happen, or
probably not?
No.
That
was just an interesting thought experiment I was thinking about.
He has, from living in LA and some of the circles that he's run in LA, he's gotten surprisingly close to a few people.
Surprised me.
But I think that I also am pretty confident that he wouldn't want to test it. That's not something that he would ever really care about. I would like
him to do it just to like prove that he could do it, and then just like cut the interview or something like that. That would be.
God, I can't remember. Amy will remind me of the exact details of this story. She's in the chat, but a couple of several months, a year or two, I don't remember, a little while back, we presented to him the idea of. Got to try to get this out. We presented to him the idea of having Diamond and Silk on the show. And I'm pretty sure they reached out to us. I'm pretty sure it was a booking agent or something reached out to us about having them on. And we were both just like, oh, this would end the world for us. It would be imagine Jason sitting talking to Diamond and Silk. Oh man, it would have been amazing. We presented it to him, and his response was basically like, "Fuck no."
Man, what the hell are you talking about? I told you not to call me high anymore.
Yeah, Amy says their people reached out to us to have them on. I was so upset that he said no. That would have been just absolutely incredible.
That should have been pay-per-view.
Because that would have totally brought out the like kid from Southwest Kansas talking to them. Would totally have brought that out in him, and it would have been great TV.
That should be top tier of Nomad Network support. Is like he does that interview, and you get access to it. You can only watch it once,
and we're the ones that like. We're the ones that make the money for it. You know, he doesn't. Right. We might throw him a bone. Like,
oh no, I meant
as a thank you.
Okay, yeah. Well, no, I like where you're going with it. Yeah, no, that's good.
That's actually a good way for us to make a very awkward segue and say that if you'd like to join the supporting listeners group, it now exists.
Not for nothing, it's really fun. It's pretty.
It is.
It's pretty.
We've got some really good people in there.
It's like the live chat just doesn't stop.
Right. Yeah.
It's just like the live chat's just going.
The memes so far have been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
You guys are loaded. You got some good memes. So
I see what's happening is like it's kind of consolidating a lot of my energy and like of communication and stuff like that. Like I find myself kind of meandering less and less. I'm just like, I wonder what these assholes are doing.
Right.
It's just like, okay. I never would have thought it would have been Discord. I just wanted to like not have Discord and just call people nerds and stuff like that. But yeah.
Is this the first time you've used Discord?
No, no, someone, it was for like a help thing or something like that. The first time like I tried to use it, and it was just I was like already like tech problems make me black out rage. Like being lost, not being able to find my wallet or keys or something like that, and like in like tech problems just make me just completely disassociate. And so I was already in that state.
You and I are the same person.
I started using nothing else, by the way. Like nothing else makes me really mad. But yeah, I tried using like a new
Stubbing my toe.
Oh, okay, that too.
Stubbing my toe is just instant, like just blackout meltdown.
Mm-hmm. So my first experience with Discord was not like a success, but this is cool.
One thing that I haven't gotten into yet is the voice chat, because I've never used that before. I've been on lots of Discord servers. The first few that I was in didn't use voice chat at all, and then the ones that once I started using it, I got into a few that had voice chat and other people used it, and it never made sense to me. I'm kind of like wait, you just sit there and talk, have a conversation,
like everything's coming back closer to like the original purpose of a phone or something like that.
Right?
Like, what are you doing?
But then, so you're basically the first person that I've ever had extended conversations with who uses like voice to text, and not voice to text, because it's not converting it to text. Like you're sending voice messages.
I'm always driving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that actually, from talking to you, I started doing it some. I started realizing, if I'm out like walking the dog or something, and I don't want to stop and sit here trying to text and hold on to the leash at the same time, I can just send a voice message. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll give voice chat a try in Discord. We've had people in there who've wanted us to a few times, and so apologies to you guys for us, or at least for me, not making it in there, but I'm planning to.
I'm trying to improve my human capital, so I find it more efficient just to get all the ideas out and not have to sit and stop and type and stuff like that. So
smart man.
I'm trying to gain wealth, power, and influence to prepare myself for a dystopian future, potentially.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Dystopian future. Can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys want to join the supporting listeners group, you can do that. Just go to subscribestar.com/kingpilled, or just go to Subscribestar and look for Kingpilled, whichever one suits your fancy. We've got a few different levels there, and we've got some special stuff that we'll give you if you sign up at the higher levels. Speaking of, we need to schedule one of those events.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
I think given the people who we have in there.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm very, very excited for that first event. So
yeah, we kind of sort of did one that was not coordinated. We did a spontaneous
That's true.
one. Yeah. We did a spontaneous one. We had a very special guest also.
That's right. Yeah. I forgot about that.
We should leave that one just for the. We should leave that one for
just the supporting listeners. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
If you want to,
I think so.
If you guys are interested in that, then you can go join the supporting listeners group and see what we're talking about.
Yeah. He or she was a real hit. That special guest. So. Except with Andrew. Andrew was accosting her the entire time.
Andrew seemed personally offended that
Andrew was
she
not
showed
a fan
up.
of our special guest. Good gracious.
Okay. So
it's been almost a half hour. I guess we'll start the show.
Yeah. Actually, before we do that, I just have to tell you guys that we were on Buck Johnson. We were on Counterflow with Buck Johnson, and I mean, we weren't on Buck Johnson. We were on Buck Johnson's podcast.
If only.
I kind of have a feeling that if we were on Buck Johnson, that he would probably break us in half. He looks like the type of person who would easily break us in half.
That's probably why I forgot the damn question that he asked me. I was worried for that poor shirt, that he was wearing. The claps were gonna jump out of it. It's just like, man, that's a made in America stitching right there. You know what I mean? Like you
damn
can't
straight.
Yeah, you can't outsource that stitching. That has to be maybe reinforced to keep all that in there. But yeah, it was real fun.
Texas traps.
That guy knows how to run a show and like an interview.
Mm-hmm. He's a pro.
He is good at it. He's so good at it.
Very much. He's one of the best natural conversationalists that I've ever lived. If you listen to him, he can talk to just about anybody, and he's very good at carefully, he doesn't leave the conversation totally open-ended. He'll kind of carefully guide it, but
Yeah.
it's so gentle and subtle.
Dancing.
Dancing, yeah.
Yeah, his dancing
Speaking
voice.
of Buck, there's actually a decent possibility that Amy and I are going to be taking Eastwood and driving out to Lockhart this next month for the Renegade University event. So that'll be kind of fun. We were planning on going for a while, and then the way that the summer was rolling out, it was just we were too busy. We had too much going on. Our tax bill was way too big. We were just like, man, screw this. But we're giving very serious thought to how soon we're going to be leaving Southern California.
Ooh.
And if we're going to be leaving, we have to scope out the specific places that we might be leaving to. And right now, Texas is at the top of the list, and it's moving up. It's been moving up fairly quickly. So we're going to be driving out there for that event. So if any of you guys are going to be there, then it'll be great to see you. It's not like guaranteed that we will. It's probably, like Amy said in the chat, it's probably 70-30 right now that we'll be going. But for those of you who don't know, there's going to be a Renegade University event, which is Thaddeus Russell's organization. They're going to be doing an event at Buck's house, actually. But it'll be sponsored by Paloma Verde. And I know that obviously Thaddeus Russell will be there. Hotep Jesus will be there. Scott Horton, which should be interesting, since he's definitely not among our biggest fans. And then I think like Jack the Perfume Nationalist will be there, and there'll be a few other people. So
You said Scott Horton
yeah,
is not fans of us?
Scott Horton is not a fan of the group of people that are being badged the post-libertarians.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's interesting. I would say tip. I don't think anyone uses the term post-libertarian who's like in that group. That was sort of like a placeholder term, I think, like in like a moment of crisis or something like that.
Yeah, people like you. I think Pete used it for a title for a show, like something like maybe we did post-libertarian question. I think might have been something we did. Yeah, but we definitely don't see ourselves that way. Yeah. Like, come on, guys, seriously, catch up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Populibs, we'll be there. We'll be in Texas. We're thinking that we might have to take at least a day and go out and check out Houston and see what's up out there. I need to have my arm twisted a little bit to move to Texas, because I've got a few different reasons why I don't want to, but we're very quickly getting to a it's not beggars can't be choosers, but it's like, because we're not beggars, but our realistic options are narrowing rather quickly. Mm-hmm. And for me, the biggest question, this will be kind of an interesting way to kind of segue into our actual conversation. For me, the biggest concern is community. I'm most interested in what the community is like wherever I'm moving to, because I think going forward, I've accepted the fact that because I'm not going to participate in the pharmaceutical experiment, I've accepted that there's going to be large parts of the society that me and my family are not going to be able to participate in. We've already given up on the idea of ever going to a concert or a sporting event, like live in person. We've already given up on ever flying commercially. We've given up on a lot of those things. Like we just don't expect to ever be able to do them again. The biggest concern is things like healthcare services, groceries, those sorts of things. And the region, it's guaranteed. I'll say it's guaranteed that there are going to be places in the United States where you will not be able to buy groceries if you are not participating in the pharmaceutical experiment. Mm-hmm. Or you will not be able to you will not be able to be served by a hospital if you have not participated in the pharmaceutical experiment. Those are things that are a given to me, that there's going to be places in the U.S. where that's the case. It's not going to be that way everywhere. And in a lot of places where it officially is that way, unofficially, it's not that enforced. So for you, if any listener who's thinking about this and taking into consideration, well, where should I look at relocating to? If you're in some big blue city, which is basically every city, if you're in some big blue city and you're ready to get out and you want to go somewhere, there's a few things I think that you should be considering. Just I'm not telling you have to think this way. I'm not telling you have to value these things. I'm telling you these are the things that I value. And if you value them as well, great. Then we see eye to eye. We're aligned, and maybe perhaps we should share a community in the future. So for me, my expectation is that you're going to want to be in a red state at the very least, but not just any red state. Some red states are not going to be sufficient. They're not going to be great. Like Utah, I don't expect to be great because Utah is like technically red, but it's also like Mitt Romney is well respected there. So there's the red in Utah is not anything at all like the red in, say, Florida. It's a very, very different red, or Alabama. But another consideration, at least for if you have kids, like so we have our little man who's going to be turning 1 here in a couple of weeks. If you're planning on homeschooling, then you need to take that into consideration as well for where you're going to be relocating to. You may already have kids and you may already have them in school somewhere, but perhaps where you relocate to, you won't want to enroll them in the schools there. Because my expectation is that the schools are going to be pretty bad just about anywhere. Like there isn't going to be this like cut and dried, like once you cross a border from a blue state into a red state, suddenly now there's like, everything is, there's like you cross from insanity into sanity. There's going to be little pockets of insanity even in the red states. So the ones that you can expect are going to be public schools, universities, major like big box retailers, especially ones that are located, that are headquartered outside red states. You're going to get like the big tech companies, all of those sorts of companies, Amazon, Microsoft, any of these major companies, they're all going to be little pockets of insanity. So what you're looking for is a red state and a red region in a red state. And then you want to have, then things like climate and the sort of natural disasters that might be around there. And there's some other stuff. We may get into some more kind of sort of like climate oriented stuff again in the future. We had an interesting conversation about that with Populibs several weeks back. But so for me, for example, like Tennessee is a really interesting one. A lot of people talk about it. It's kind of seeming like a good sort of Republican holdout.
It might be near me. I don't know. I refuse to know anything in my heart. See, I'm sort of a Northeast elite in some ways, in that I refuse to acknowledge like the rest. Like it really is. I do hold the opinion that the country is pretty much like the Northeast, Florida down here, a bunch of bullshit, and then California. Even though like ideologically, I'm sure that I would rather live among all the people in the parts of the country that I like still make fun of and like currently live in, kind of. But yeah, I think Tennessee might actually be near me, isn't it?
Populib says there's a mountain range between Tennessee and North Carolina.
Oh, good, because as someone who lives in an allegedly red state but in a blue area, man, you notice. And it's really funny though, because like where I do stuff is in all like blue areas, but once I kind of get anywhere outside of them, things change very quickly, which gives me hope for like red areas of red places that are, maybe not North Carolina. I don't know yet, but yeah, this Texas thing sounds pretty interesting. Boy, do I not want to get on a plane, and boy, do I not want to spend money. I certainly don't want to drive, but man, it sounds like you guys are going to make me do it. That sounds like it could be fun.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be. I think it's going to be a riot. We've got some other friends that are in Central Texas that we're going to check out. We'll be around the San Antonio area and then up into probably poke around Austin a little bit and then check out Houston. And that's probably kind of this broad general area where we're looking at. The further west, the better, but civilization is a little further east. So here's kind of the real crux of it. I don't want to be completely isolated away from civilization. I want to have access to civilization. I want to have access to things. I want to have access to people. I want to have access to society. But people in society are that's like the medium for the corruption. That's where the corruption comes from. So how do you balance like not going completely like full Thoreau with not being corrupted by the urban areas. This is why I'm like, okay, well, there's you've got to find the reddest of the red states, not just any red state, but the reddest of the red states. So Tennessee, for example, it's pretty red, but
dude, I could like walk to Tennessee. I never
really?
would. It's so much. It's touching North Carolina.
Yeah, I thought they
I
shared a
refuse to
border.
learn anything about this shithole. God, really?
But the thing about Tennessee is that the homeschooling there is pretty well regulated. The homeschooling is like you have to register and you have to do regular testing, and that's a thing that's a very big issue for Amy and I, because we're not planning on taking Eastwood through the traditional indoctrination pathways. We want him to actually learn. So we don't want to have to be registering with the state and having to do regular standardized testing and all that sort of thing, because those are vectors for corruption and control. So that to me takes Tennessee off the board. The fact that their homeschooling is so regulated. And someone might say, well, just move there and change it. No, I'm not interested. Like, that's not, I want to move somewhere that I don't need to change.
Someone like you would say that.
Yeah.
I'll
say it to other people.
Yeah, exactly.
All the rest of you are held to a different standard than I am.
That's working on bigger, better shit. That's the difference.
I have no problem with double standards.
That's not watching you on the internet.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck me. This is the best thing.
Speaking
ever.
of, hey, how many thumbs down do we have? We have 1 thumbs down.
That's rookie shit.
Listen, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, we need to get these numbers up. There's 31 of you watching right now. There's 8 thumbs up, 1 thumbs down. More interactions.
Yes, more negative interactions.
And preferably negative interactions. Random username, super chat, $10, says leaving Houston, lost, and building parents' farmhouse in Livingston, Texas. Lots of farmers also need options ready outside the USA. I'll get that post to you tonight. Hopefully said I would 2 episodes ago. Okay, cool. Sounds good, man. So yeah, ready outside the USA. That's another big consideration. And honestly, that's another perk to Texas for me, is that Texas is very close to Mexico.
Isn't that wild? Like, I mean, at what point did people think leaving the States for like southern Mexico, was going to be something that they wanted as an option?
Right.
Isn't that wild? And even that was like an argument with like the wall and stuff like that. It's like, it goes both ways.
Right.
And at the time, may have sounded silly, but
yeah,
I have someone, and God, I want to get her on the show, but who is like talking about that area as a possibility. It has some really interesting things to say about some really interesting groups that exist there that I don't know how well known the groups are or not by everybody. But man, there's
is this supporting listeners group content?
Yeah, I think I could get her to talk about it in some kind of like anonymous interview or whatever.
Supporting listeners group content.
Yeah, for sure. But man, interesting convos for sure.
We're gonna paywall some of our content just so that we have paywalled content, and you guys have to deal with that.
And did well, this might be going to paywall anyway. But like, did you ever mention how to join the supporting listeners group, or is like, no, fuck, you have to figure it out? Like, just more barriers.
I said it.
Well, okay, more barriers to entry. I wanted to let you know that someone asked about the Free State Project.
Oh yeah, I missed that one.
Yeah.
My opinion of the Free State Project is that Connecticut, or not Connecticut, New Hampshire. Yeah, it's all the same thing. Yes, exactly. It's all
goddamn commies in the West Coast, Connecticut.
Dude, New Hampshire
if the Free State Project was in Connecticut, like I'd probably go there.
Shout out Adam Patrick.
Yeah, Adam Patrick.
So the Free State Project is whatever. It's fine. The biggest thing that stands out to me is that New Hampshire locked down like everyone else. So I don't really know how free it really is. And also it's a country, it's a state with a really high concentration of libertarians. That's not my people. That's kind of the subject of, so is liberty your actual goal? That was the title of the show today. And there is a significant dynamic right now within these communities, the liberty-minded communities. There's kind of a big dividing line, I think. And that dividing line is between people who value liberty and people who value being a libertarian. And that's not the same thing. Turning people into libertarians is not the same thing as creating liberty. And often it's actually moving in the wrong direction. Turning someone into a libertarian doesn't move them toward liberty. If anything, it moves them away from it, because it gets them invested in an ideological movement that is doing a lot of stuff without going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That was sort of what sparked us wanting to get on and start having these conversations on here. And it's funny. I've gotten a few comments back from people lately who have essentially, they've kind of framed their relationship to me. Like they'll come reply to my stuff on Twitter and they react to it as if I'm the one proactively going after them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not replying to them. I'm not reaching out to them. I'm not going after them. I'm talking about this stuff. I've never asked to go on anybody's platform. People have asked me to come on their platform and talk. And so I've talked about the stuff that I'm interested in. I've talked about the stuff that I care about. I mean, you had to talk me into doing this podcast in the first place.
I did.
And I was already probably eventually going to do one, but you're the one who made it happen. So I want people to know that my goal here is not to evangelize people. I'm not here to try to convert people or to try to change people's minds. My goal is to try to talk to people who value what I value and who see the world the way I do and who want to talk about it together and figure it out. That's my goal. And so then I'm gonna target myself toward groups of people who I think will contain the type of people that I'm looking for. But if you disagree with anything I have to say, if you think I'm wrong, I don't care. I'm not trying to change your mind. If there's 5 people in the entire online libertarian Twitter circle who are interested in what we have to say, cool. I want to hang out with those 5 people. I don't need to appeal to everybody, and that's not my goal.
I think what really got me interested in trying to persuade Matt to talk more publicly is, man, when all this bullshit was happening sometime over the summer, it was like, I don't remember when it was, but it was just the idea. It just kind of became apparent that like all this progressive shit was just like boiling over and just getting crazy. And like Matt kind of went through, you know, how critical race theory relates to this, relates to that, relates to this concept of white fragility, relates to, you know, all the, just broke everything down, you know, just for the purpose of understanding it, you know. And I think that is like a worthy pursuit, is like understanding stuff. And so when people are like, there's a lot of like we say, there's a lot of young energy that's drawn to anything that has any kind of like emotion behind it, you know, anything like the Ron Paul movement, the original one, and then like this, like, you know, second coming of Ron Paul revolution or whatever, or Bernie Sanders, or, you know, whatever. There's a lot of like emotion behind it, and emotion, you know, if you want to be all enlightenment-y about it, emotion's dumb, you know. It has like, it's just like a quantity. It's just like a quantity of like energy that can kind of go anywhere. So it's just like, if you're a guy and you're talking to a girl at a bar and she hates you, you can make her hate you. You have a better chance with her than like a girl who's like indifferent to you, because the girl who's indifferent, there's like just no emotion there. You have nothing to work with. The girl who hates you, it's like, oh, well, you can take that emotion to kind of like redirect it.
Yeah.
And so like with all this,
it's like you can't wrestle someone who's completely limp. You have to wrestle someone who's fighting back.
Tell me. supporting listeners. I'm trying to be better. I'm sorry. I get sick of myself too. So you guys aren't the only ones. But yeah, so just like kind of like directing this energy into something that like makes sense. Like there's something worth understanding, like what's happening around you, so that you can make better decisions. And so I was just like, man, here's someone who has taken time to sort of break down everything that's going on, so that, if you ever have like the impulse to try to like argue with these people who are making your life miserable, this guy just for like 10 minutes broke down why, you who feel you have all these ideas and are so logical cannot get anything across to these people, and why you should probably stop, and why, you're not doing anything to help. And that's what really registered with me, that okay, yeah, there has to be a space for this, and like beyond just like a couple minutes here on the Jason Stapleton on Wealth, Power, and Influence. And the other thing I wanted to say, so like I was saying, there's a lot of energy that goes into these movements that attract younger people and whatever. And like I mentioned, Bernie Sanders. The reason that Matt's out there and he's like saying libertarians, it's not like it is fun to trash libertarians, but just like psychologically, it's because like they're like closer to us or whatever. It's like if you have a kid and he's like the same kind of annoying as you are, or has like the same like a bad habit that you have, that's like when you really tear into him,
right?
Because it's like a mirror, it like annoys you. So whether it's like a tendency that like you have or had, or it reminds you of like a younger version, like there's a little bit of that. And then the other thing is just like Matt's not going to talk to like Bernie Sanders supporters, because really, why he, like maybe sometimes, but certainly not all the time. There's only so much like that you could get from just like kind of like constantly trying to talk to Bernie Sanders supporters, because they're not going to really listen to Matt. He's not going to really be speaking their language. Libertarians, yeah. And like even when we have conversations with Pete, Pete openly will say, even on his shows, he like if he sees some kind of behavior or something that he sees as like useless or counterproductive or whatever, he's like, yeah, it was me, X amount of months ago. Mm-hmm. And that's like a very healthy thing to be able to do, and not be married to, like a particular portion of your development, like within an ideology or whatever. Just like you want to keep sort of like sharpening.
Right. Yeah. That's a good observation. I just kind of was visualizing as you were talking about it. I was thinking about how, like you're saying, like we see ourselves as having been in and among that scene. That's kind of like, that was us. That was like, that felt like our people, kind of like this is the people who we all value the same thing. We have these, what we call libertarian values. And we have this idea of liberty that we're pursuing, and that we want to see a world that reflects our values. And there's this big community of people who all like to talk about that a lot. But while we've been in amongst that community, we've started to realize, well, you guys are just talking about it. You're not actually doing it. You're not actually moving in that direction. It's kind of like you set up a base camp, and you guys have just made your residence in the base camp. And I say you guys just because this is just the way that I talk. I'm not trying to accuse or anything like that. I'm speaking just generically, I guess. It's a like a libertarian thing that libertarians have just set up a base camp, and they're sitting there talking about what it probably looks like from the summit. And we've realized that there's nobody who's actually going toward the summit. So we're going to start heading toward the summit, and we're just trying to talk to anybody else who's still back at the base camp who wants to come with us. Maybe that analogy, I don't know if that analogy works for you guys, but that's kind of how I've been visualizing it. It's just I mean, I haven't been visualizing that. That analogy just popped into my head, but that's kind of how that's how it's felt. So the reason that we're talking to libertarians, the reason why we keep bringing it up, is because that's those are the only people. Everybody else hasn't even made it to the base camp. You know, so this like we're talking to the people who are closest to us because we want to continue on to the summit. We want to actually pursue liberty. We want to understand it. We want to understand what it is. We want to understand what's attainable and how we can attain it, how we can get to it. Yeah, we're forming a hiking party. That's yeah. So who wants to come hiking with us?
Yeah, hell yeah. I offer private hikes too.
I bet you do.
Yeah, Buck can come anytime he wants. And you know, it's just like
Screw you, Jason.
where we're Jason come to where we're hiking to. This is like this is like a for instance, but you know, if you like sit down and you kind of think hard about like the next like 5 or 10 years or like beyond, you think about what it might look like if you take a version of like what you hope it looks like and then what you fear that it looks like and meet in the middle, you know, and just kind of like take into account like what you thought 2020 was going to look like in like say 2018 compared to like how it turned out, and maybe skew like for those results. When you are hiking to like a red area of a red state that's close to a city, like who do you think is going to be more useful to your survival? The progressives that you want to dunk on or the boomer cons that you want to dunk on? Like if you're just like a generic ass libertarian who just is like both sides are the same, you know, whatever. It's like those are things to maybe start thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I think that like there's some of that sentiment that definitely comes from a lot of the stuff that I say. You know, it's just like yeah, man, I don't know, I'll take the guy who posts like, you know, a picture of like Jesus the shepherd like high-fiving, you know, Trump driving a convertible or what, like fine. Like it doesn't bother me that like there's an American flag like hanging out the back of like a 96 vet. Like it's whatever, man. It's all good. Like you're not gonna get a fucking paragraph from me about why the flag is dumb. No, sir. Because you want to know what? Whoever posted that, they know how to hunt way better than I do. You know, there's it's like, you got it, man. I will reshare that meme for you, sir.
Those are the sort of world that those people would create is a world that I would rather live in than the world that would be created by progressives.
Dude,
doesn't mean that everything's perfect about it.
And like even the worst version, like if you're like say you're a libertarian, the worst version of the world that like a boomer con would create, that you can envision, like how many times over would you smash a button if you could just exist in that world right now?
Yeah. They're trying to go back, like they're like, we need to go back to the way things used to be back in the good old days. And the libertarian instinct is oh, there were no good old days. Actually, all those times that you remember were good, well, those are actually really bad and shitty and awful and terrible. And so trying to recreate them would be bad. And it's like how do you not see that they're not saying we need to go back to the good old days for all the parts that were bad.
Right.
We need to get all the bad stuff and make that really. They're not saying that.
Right.
They're saying all the things that were good, that we loved, that were part of a healthy, stable, part of the healthy, stable aspects of the society. They're trying to recreate those.
Yeah. Stop arguing like a progressive, basically.
Yeah. Like very much. And there's a reason that that libertarians keep arguing like progressives.
Oh yeah, no. Oh, I like where that's going, but we're gonna get fired. I think that there's one more thing that I would say is that like when certainly when you're like talking on, you know, in these places and talk, you know, whatever post libertarian conversations, we'll use your dumb word, whatever. There's something to be said for the fact that like when we talk about AOC and how you know, the hypocrisy of progressivism is a feature, and so you have this person who's obviously rich and connected and living this elite lifestyle, and she can simultaneously you know, feel oppressed, and people look at her like, you know, she's oppressed and, you know, feel like she's fighting the good fight and all this stuff and blah 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 blah. So enjoying all the privilege and, you know, but feeling all the joy of being, you know, repressed and all that stuff. Libertarianism, if you're not careful, can kind of turn into this sort of like haven for people who allow themselves to be mediocre, allow themselves not to push themselves, who feel intellectually superior, and maybe they are, maybe they're not, like it remains to be seen. Like there's a mix, whatever, but you can get very complacent there, hanging out, thinking that you simply hover above society for not participating in it because the Federal Reserve is the cause of all of your problems, and every excuse in the world not to experience any personal liberty, or maybe you're a libertarian who doesn't think that political action is worth anything, in which case you're also wrong, because because we've said that a lot before too. But yeah, I mean, basically it can be a trap, where it's very comfortable. It's like, so it's like all this shit is kind of like getting out of a cold pool. It feels like you want to just kind of hang out there and just kind of like, like say taxation is after like shit post, or just make fun of boomer cons and like whatever else, and just feel smart at everybody. And that's all. It's like fine ultimately. I guess when it becomes not fine is if you think that in the future there might be like a Stasi-like apparatus that begins to impose some like real life consequences that other people have experienced in the world, like while we've been alive, even, or some of us have been alive. And if you think that might be a future, then it's like, okay, well, maybe doing all this stuff actually isn't fine, and it's going to have some, bring some detriment to your life. But even if that's not the case, it can still trap you in a place where you're not going to realize your fullest potential, not be in a place to maybe one day possibly help bring around like the ideal society that you desire. Because that opportunity is not tomorrow. It's probably not next week. It might not even be next month. It might not be in our lifetime, but it could be. Like it definitely could be. But like the time is not now, and during this time, preparing yourself and doing things beyond, just kind of like languishing in like the comfort of feeling, better than everyone else. Like you do that with us. Do it the way that we do it. Don't do it the way you do it.
You have to do everything like us.
We're so much more fun doing it how we do it.
We're the standard setters.
Yes.
I've got real quick, I just want to reply to something Carlos said here. He said, Matt, just like investing, is it maybe smart to diversify in your people capital just in case you're wrong? And he's replying to me saying essentially that I'm trying to build an echo chamber. Like that's what I just want to talk to people who already agree with me. And that's possible. It's possible that it would be smarter to diversify, but I'm not a diversify kind of a person. I'm an all in or all out. And I think lukewarm isn't something that I like. I don't like taking lukewarm showers. I like taking showers that are so hot I can barely stand in them, or showers that are so cold I can barely stand in them. I don't hang out in the middle of the bell curve that well. I'm either all the way at the top or all the way at the bottom.
But I do think that there are some people that are part of this, and maybe even might listen enthusiastically, who probably don't agree with everything that we say, or maybe even a lot of it, but they all seem to have a certain, there's like an open-mindedness there, where they're willing to like consider stuff,
right?
And take it for what it's worth. Like I just got turned on to some like bunch of fucking leftist shit that I don't really want, but it's like real leftist stuff or whatever, and like I'm not stoked on it, but I know that based on who referred me to, it's going to be it's going to be at the very least thought provoking, and I'm into that. And I think that there's some people like that that are around here.
Yeah. I mean, Cyprian doesn't we don't see eye to eye with him on a bunch of stuff, but on like the stuff that really matters, we definitely do.
He's not a fan of the Free State Project, by the way, to bring it back to that. I mean, this man sent us $5, sir. So
man who lived there is not interested in it. And I just heard too that Brett Venot from the School Sucks Project, who is a person that we want to talk to, at some point in the future. He also lived in New Hampshire and is not a fan of the Free State Project. So just take that for what it is. With the whole shit posting thing, like I have, don't worry, folks. We are going to get back to the actual subject of the podcast here, of this episode. And actually, I think this probably kind of ties into it. So
Yeah,
the posting thing, I'm going to try to think this through out loud here, because I don't know exactly how I feel about it. On one hand, I don't have any sort of affection for like spoil sports and people with a stick up their ass, and people who are just like, if people want to do something, have fun. I'm not, far be it from me to be a person to tell them not to do it.
a lot of it has to do with the intent behind the shit posting.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to sort of like impersonally just evaluate the pros and cons of it. And I think that there's, like I've said before, that ANCAPs need entertainment too. So if your thing is that you're entertainment for ANCAPs, then cool. Like do that. Just make sure that you aren't saying, well, we're entertainment for ANCAPs and we're also converting, we're also doing evangelism. Because there's a very good chance that you're going to end up working against one or the other of your purposes. It all comes down to what your actual goal is. So if your goal is, we want to convert people to libertarianism, and we're going to do it by trolling and insulting and whatever else, then there's a good chance that you're working against your own purposes. I'm not going to tell you not to do it. I don't care what you do. I'll just tell you, does this or does this not correspond with your stated intent? So I think that we're at a time where there's a lot of people who do engage in a lot of shit posting who would probably be better off not doing it for any number of reasons. But I guess that's not really for me to say. I do want for people who are, again, I'm trying to be very specific with who I'm talking to. So for people who are already thinking this way, who already are kind of like of a mind with what we're saying, what we're talking about here, we are interested in going for a hike. So we're going to hike to the summit. We want to be completely open about what we're trying to do, and we don't want to have any sacred cows. We're willing to slaughter any sacred cows if it seems that it's necessary to do so. So ultimately, our goal is liberty. We haven't left that goal. We've just dug into what it actually is and how we can get there. And we're trying to evaluate our own behaviors to determine, is what I'm doing moving myself and the people I care about toward liberty, whatever that is, or is what I'm doing moving it away from liberty? And if I'm moving away from liberty, then I want to stop doing what I'm doing, and I want to start doing something that will actually move me toward it. So, all that being said, I had this tweet up here for a minute. I'll put it up here again real quick. This here, Fat Dave Smith said, "Do not stay stagnant in your libertarian ideas. Continue to question why you believe what you believe. Doubt and curiosity are good and lead to better understanding of the true principles you hold." And I just said this is very good advice and also a very good way to wind up no longer a libertarian, because this is basically exactly what happened to me. And if I can get all abstract again and use this analogy, you have the base camp, which is what libertarianism is, and then you have the summit, which is what liberty is. When I was at the base camp, I thought that the goal was to get to the summit. After being at the base camp for a while, I realized that most of the people who are at the base camp want to talk about going to the summit, and they want to talk about what the summit looks like and how great it is, and they want to go over and over the map to get there, and they want to do all kinds of different stuff other than going to the summit. So I still want to go to the summit. That hasn't changed for me. I've just realized that the base camp is never going to be the summit. So if I have to leave the base camp behind to go to the summit, so be it. And I think this is where there's a big divide happening between, Tho Bishop has been talking about this. There's a big divide happening between people who want to spread libertarianism and people who want to move toward liberty. Spreading libertarianism is not moving toward liberty. The two could be correlated, but then that's a thing you have to evaluate. Does making more people libertarian cause more liberty to happen for people? And I think if you start evaluating that, I mean, if you ask any libertarian today, go to a libertarian today and say, do you have liberty? Do you have more liberty now than you did when you first heard of Ron Paul? If you do, why? What was it that gave you that liberty? And whatever it was, it's going to be something having to do with improving their own human capital, acquiring rare and specialized skills, and working in the direction of controlling the source of their income. I guarantee you those are going to be the things that if they have more liberty now than they did then, those are going to be the things that are primary for them. So then the next question would be, did you need to be converted to libertarianism to do those things? Was converting to libertarianism a necessary step in the path? Or was it just correlated with it? You happened to hear who Ron Paul was, and then you went and earned more liberty, created more liberty for yourself. If Ron Paul just inspired you to go do those things, then if your goal is to have that same thing happen for other people, you don't necessarily need to give them a Ron Paul moment. You can just take the lifestyle that you have now embodied and begin teaching other people how to have the same lifestyle. That's what Jason is doing. He's learned how to use specific, rare, specialized skills to create liberty for himself and his family. And then he's teaching those skills to anybody who wants them, anybody who wants to know. He's teaching them to those people so those people can do the same thing for themselves. He doesn't have to teach them about the non-aggression principle to do that. It doesn't matter if some schmuck working a 9-to-5 with $100,000 in student debt and $1,800 in his checking account, it doesn't matter to that guy what is and is not violating the non-aggression principle. That's just an interesting fact. It's an interesting anecdote. It's just oh, that's kind of cool. That's an interesting theoretical principle. But to that guy, the guy with a whole bunch of debt and doesn't own any property, or maybe has one rental property that pays for his mortgage. Sure, okay, that's pretty good, you know. To that guy, he doesn't need more libertarian theory. He needs a lifestyle that will create liberty for himself and for his family, then for his community. Once he's gotten to that point, he's now at it's like he's earned the right to begin dabbling in the theory, the philosophy, and to start operating on a larger, more global scale to start influence. It's like first you have to influence one person, you have to start with your one person. Then you influence a collective of people, a small collective of people, your family. Then you influence a larger collective of people, your neighborhood, your church. And then you go larger. You keep scaling up, but you have to perfect it at one level before you move to the next. I shouldn't say perfect it because somebody's going to quibble about that. It's not that you have to perfect it. It's that you have to establish yourself as responsible at one level. Once you've done that, you can build on that foundation. And that's the process for creating liberty. You create liberty for yourself. If you do this, if you get enough people in one area who are all working on this at the same time together and specializing in a diverse range of skills and industries, and then they're all like-minded, so they can pool their resources, their assets. They can function as a community, as a tribe. They then are able to consolidate political power, which is freedom. Freedom and political power are synonymous. They can consolidate that together and use it to give themselves more. It's like you have to establish at this level, and then you build, and then you build, and then you build, and then you build. And you can't take the whole you can't take a bite of the whole apple. This is a bad analogy. You can't do the whole thing if you haven't first started with your own individual self. You haven't started with you. And this game, people say, well, why can't you just do both? It's because the politics side of it, the evangelism, the activism side of it depends upon the other side. You can't do the politics side of it without the other side. If you don't have the liberty you've already created for yourself, you are free riding on someone else's. You're depending upon someone else's wealth, power, and influence when you could create your own, and then all of you who've created your own pool it together. So this is the path for climbing for hiking the path to the summit. This is the way that you hike to the summit. The way that you actually create liberty is through the wealth, power, and influence route. And then all of the rest of it, people say, oh, if you leave it, you could do all that, and then the state's still going to come after you. So if you put yourself in a better position, you're still going to have to deal with the state. So would you rather deal with the state from a position of strength or position of weakness? Because if you're not going to do the wealth, power, and influence path first, that means you're going to engage with the state from a position of weakness. If you're going to have to engage with the state inevitably, then do it from a position of strength. That's all that we're saying. This isn't some super clever, deep philosophical point. The deep philosophical stuff is kind of like it's like if you want to look underneath the hood and figure out how everything's working underneath the hood, that's all the deep philosophical stuff. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you've got to put the hood down, climb into the driver's seat, and drive away.
And I realized that for a bunch of people who seem to love philosophy, the people who don't like the post-libertarian, they really don't like when we talk about philosophy.
It's almost like they only like their own philosophy.
And I think part of the zoom out guy here, I think part of the issue too is like adjusting people's paradigms to the idea that the choices before you are both non-ideal. And so like throwing out like the idea of just like, oh, well, you're not making everything perfect tomorrow as like some kind of some way to negate like anything else, that the post-libertarians have to say. If you can kind of like adjust your perceptions to just kind of be like, yeah, I think we might be able to reattach the leg. And like just moving towards, yeah, we can maybe reattach the leg, I think. You want us to try? Like, yes, that, like versus like, versus those like increasing your vertical leap by 10 inches. It's like, nah, you might never jump, but we're going to get that leg back on there. You'll be able to walk. I think if you can kind of get your head around and like approach the somewhat immediate future with like that mentality, and it's not like a trick. Like I'm not, I don't think it's like an elaborate demoralization campaign or anything like that. I think things are pretty fucked. And so anything that you're like taking in, if you're taking it in with like a 2012 like mindset, like nothing's going to sound right. So, I think everything like through the lens of, both things may be non-ideal, but I'm going to move towards the one that is less non-ideal. It's kind of helpful. And I think there's a lot with like, God, there's so much, it was such a good idea that Nick Paul had when he was talking about, he was like inviting me on to talk about, I think something with like combat sports and like how it like influences your thinking and stuff like that. I'm just going to steal it and do it here, Nick. But I think, part of it is just like, it is often like not, circumstances like in like combat sports are not always such that you can achieve your end goal immediately. Like that's just not how it works. Like sometimes you are just getting fucking pounded and you need to just reduce the amount of damage that you're taking. and you need to just like protect yourself and prepare for when like the opportunity arises that you can capitalize and move things more towards the way that you want. And yeah, I don't know. I think maybe like, I don't know, go roll like a bunch of jiu-jitsu for like 6 months or something like that. And I think like doing that will just like help like the worldview and kind of help like taking in any information, whether it's like from us or another source, and it'll just maybe make a lot more sense.
It's the like, it's easier to, once you get into fighting, wrestling, that sort of thing, you realize that often it's easier, especially if you're a big guy like me, or at least when I was wrestling. I grew up fast and then kind of plateaued early, and so whenever I was wrestling when I was in high school and stuff, I'd never like formally wrestled, just wrestling with friends. I was always bigger than basically everybody else, and I realized pretty quickly that it was a lot easier to wait for someone else to make the first move and then use their momentum against them than it was to try to initiate everything myself. And I think there's kind of a lesson there that it has to do with going with the flow and rolling with punches, whatever analogy you want to use, but letting people, rather than going and attacking and trying to like pull someone and attack someone, like if you're gonna approach it that way, you have to be capable of overwhelming your opponent by sheer force. You have to be so powerful that you could just do it. You could just accomplish it straight up, or you can wait for them to make the first move, and then you adjust based on what they do, and you use their momentum against them. And I think that's probably much more of a that's like a Machiavellian approach to these sorts of things. 2-Bit Podcast said, quoting, "You mean I'll be able to defeat the state? No, Neo. I mean, when you're ready, you won't have to." And that sums it up pretty well there.
You should have a podcast.
yeah. 2-Bit Podcast. You should start a podcast. Dave, or not Dave. Shout out Fat Dave. Fat Dave's in the comments. Buck was mentioning something here in the chat, and I don't know for sure, Buck, if you'd be cool with me talking about that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to try to see if you wanted to bring that up. It's like a perfect example of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, if you don't want us to, Buck, then I have no problem at all. We can let it. It'll come out at some point. I'm sure people talk about it at any other point.
He wrote it in the chat.
Right. Yeah, but there's
okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of did he write it in this chat?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay.
Buck in the chat says, sorry. Yeah. No, he wrote in the chat. What am I talking about? Right now, the LPMC in Texas is more concerned about filling the LP convention hall than putting actual secession on the ballot for all Texans to vote on. My screen's so cracked. They don't want it done via the Republican Party.
Yeah, it's an email that they sent out. He got it because he's part of he's a member. He just shared it with us in a private chat that we have, and apparently the LPMC is prioritizing membership in the LP over actually getting secession on the ballot. Now, there's going to be lots of people who don't like this. There's going to be lots of members of the LPMC who don't like it. I think most of the members of the LPMC won't like it. But here's the thing. This is a perfect example of what I was talking about in the past when I said that Nick Sarwark was right when he was talking to Dave. And he said, it's not my job to convert people to libertarians. It's my job to run a political party. This is the currency in politics. This is the way that a political party has to function. You don't get to be principled. You don't get to live in a hypothetical utopia in your head. This is it's in the interest of a political party to ensure that its members don't leave it. And that's what the LPMC is doing. They're acting according to their own incentives. This is the incentive for the LPMC.
Exactly. People are Muppets, so it's just like whether you can go in with whatever intention you want. You will find that you start performing to the incentives before you. So if it's a political party, like even if you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z, when you joined it, like even the kind of you can see the conversation kind of change too about about all this. There's a couple specific conversations in my head I was gonna kind of go like look through again, because I was noticing how it was kind of changing, but the conversation did start to be more about acquiring like political power, or like using like this tiny party for, when wielding political power. And it's like, or convincing people that was an actual option. And that's because that's how people perceive political parties. It's how political parties work. And so like right now you're seeing a very clear divide that like Buck brought up, and I'm sure he's going to talk about on his show. And in addition to like us being on his show, he's going to talk about this, and it'll probably be pretty fascinating. You should go subscribe to Buck Johnson on his YouTube channel. Counterflow. Yep. Counterflow with Buck Johnson. But yeah, this is a time of revelation. And so like in the sense of, apocalypse meaning revealing, like this is something that reveals basically like, how do you come down on this? We can have secession on the ballot, whatever. And just, you have people who will react to the LPMC saying, not to vote for it because it, it's more important for them to, keep their numbers. It's going to show, is liberty more important to me? Or, and like, it's a very clear, once that question's answered, it's very clear how someone comes down on that issue. And so you can just kind of observe, and you can just kind of say, oh, this is actually what a political party does. So, and Matt, not that I think people understand what he's talking about in here who's watching this, but if anyone gives Matt shit about Sarwalk might be, that's a motherfucker of a name, maybe right in what he says, but that doesn't, it's not like, oh yeah, Nick Sarwalk is correct, full stop. Like, I mean,
right,
you have an issue with the Libertarian Party existing.
There are a few people in the world who I have more contempt for than Nick Sarwark, but I can still recognize when he's correct. It's just,
and he's correct from his perspective. Like, we don't think, like, I mean, for me, I don't think his perspective should exist. I don't think there really should be a libertarian political party.
Right.
Unless someone came up with like, it's just like a banging idea for it that would, I mean, but yeah, like, as
it shouldn't exist until there's a reason for it to exist.
Right.
And right now, given the ideas of that people have for what to do with it, there's no reason for it to exist, because nobody has any ideas worth having about how to use the LP.
Mm-hmm.
Popular Liberty said spreading the message equals trying to convince people the state which rewards them should not exist to reward them. Very difficult. That's right.
Pretty good.
When you're trying to spread the message, you're trying to tell people, hey, this thing that you like, that does things for you that you want, it should not exist. Instead, there should be nothing, and you should be fully responsible for all those things. Mm-hmm. It's a hell of a message. Like, sure, right. Maybe it's true, but it's not adapted to politics. It's not adapted to the political arena. I think there's a misconception that we are opposed to political action.
Right.
We're not. And this is funny. We kind of get this, like, on one hand, oh, you guys are authoritarians just looking for any excuse to use power. And on the other hand, oh, you guys don't believe in the political process at all. You can't just leave politics alone. Eventually, you have to deal with it. Those two things can't exist at the same time.
Zoom out guy jumping in again, like one more time, as he is wont to do. A lot of this problem is that, that we really are trapped in this like the brief part of civilization where people try to convince themselves that they're logical entities.
Yeah.
And so like I was like, oh, there's two things. It's it's hypocritical. It's yes, like these things exist at the same time. It's just like we're trying to
paradoxes exist.
Yeah, in this logical box, and so that's why everyone's mind is melting. But it's also why we have no business having the minds that we have inherited. All right, I'm zooming out.
There's a great comment here from Dylan. He said the goal is for the state to shrivel, not collapse. One breeds chaos, the other is a side effect of order. It's a very good observation. You don't want collapse. Collapse is an opportunity. Go learn about archetropism. What you call collapse, that is the prerequisite for a tyrant to step in and fill that void of power. If you're trying to abolish political institutions, you have to have something to replace them. You can't replace them with nothing. Because if you don't have something to replace them, someone will replace them for you. This is just a fact of reality. This is like a fact of nature. It's an inevitability. Ultimately, to actually obtain a libertarian goal through the political process requires authoritarianism. It requires a powerful tyrant who will impose libertarianism and the lack of consolidated political power on everyone else. That's the only way that you can do it. That's the only way that you can make that happen. So if you're a libertarian who's thinking that you're going to spread libertarianism through the political process, the only way for it to happen is for libertarianism to be imposed upon the people who would otherwise take control of the state and impose something else. And spoiler alert, that's actually going to happen. Something to that effect. That's the direction that we're heading. I was just listening to Adam Patrick talking to Ken Thoreau on You're Talking Over Me. A very, very good conversation. You guys should go check that out. They were touching on one of the things that we've talked about here a lot, which is the fact that we're moving into an era where libertarians are going to become useful idiots, where libertarian rhetoric, free market rhetoric, pro-capitalist rhetoric, pro-individual rights, all of this rhetoric is going to be adopted by the regime.
Have we brought that up on previous podcasts?
Yeah, we talked about like Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, and the fact that eventually, like right now, you have all of the moneyed interests, the corporations, the banks, the financial institutions, and they just kind of play the state like a marionette, and they're just going to be getting the state out of the way. And like free market people are going to look at this and be like, yeah, market, yeah, state down, limited government, woohoo. And they're going to get suckered right into it. And it's just going to be private technocracy.
I knew that we had. What I was going to say is if Matthew is uploading the podcasts to podcatchers. So if you're out there and you're listening to this, you can go back and listen to old episodes and see when the first time that we brought that concept up of libertarians being used as useful idiots.
Soon. I'm waiting to hear back from. I'm waiting. I've submitted it to be uploaded to be added to iTunes and to or I guess it's Apple Podcasts now and Spotify and all those other things. So I'm just waiting to hear back on that, and then it'll be available. Then it'll be out there, and you guys can go download it on all of your podcatchers. It's interesting. Something you said. You talked about. You dropped the word apocalypse, and you referenced the. I can tell you've been listening to Lord of Spirits. You referenced the actual meaning of apocalypse. Because people like apocalyptic has come to mean like end of the world, kind of. It's synonymous with like the collapse of society. And apocalypse, actually, the literal meaning of it, it's from two Greek words, apo, like APO, which is un, and I have no idea how to pronounce it, but phonetically it's kaluptine, which is so it's un and to cover, so it means to uncover literally. So it's revealing. It's to uncover or to reveal. And so the apocalypse is like the great revealing. So this event, you used it very properly here with this event, with this email. This email is an apocalyptic event, this LPMC Texas email. It's an apocalyptic event because it's uncovering, it's revealing the actual preferences, the actual incentive structure. It's being revealed. And that's kind of, if you think in terms of like eschatology or end times, or the end of major epochal cycles, what it really is, the end times is an uncovering event. It's when a whole bunch of stuff that was happening behind the scenes or under the surface comes out into the open, and it's revealed. It's brought out for everybody to see. That's what the apocalypse is, and that's kind of what's happening now. It's kind of like all these people are like, there was this stuff that was simmering under the surface, and through the events, through Brexit, through Trump being elected, through Black Lives Matter, through the last election, all these different things are all revealing events. They're all apocalyptic events because they're revealing the actual, there's the formal official story, and then there's what's actually happening underneath it. And that's being revealed. That's coming out to the surface. And that's apocalyptic. So, okay, we've kind of dragged this out long enough. We can get to the actual point here. So, there's one other tweet that I wanted to share, and it was just quick. It's this. Shout out to President Dr. Golden Donut. So he had a great reply to a tweet that I said. So I had quote tweeted this guy Antonio Garcia Martinez, who's the one who got canceled in by Apple. He was working with Apple, and then he'd written a book, and a bunch of SJWs got all butthurt about stuff he'd said in the book about women. And so there was a big hullabaloo in the news recently. He tweeted, "The fact that the catchphrase is tax the rich and not help the poor is telling." And that was a banger. That's one of the best tweets I've seen in a while. Tax the rich versus help the poor. That's the approach. And that's revealing. That should be revealing to the people who have that perspective, who are using that slogan. That should tell you something about their psychology. So then you shouldn't engage with them on the tax the rich level. You shouldn't engage with the alternate reality they're trying to create. They're trying to create a world where the point is tax the rich to help the poor. That's like ostensibly that's who they are, but who they actually are is just tax the rich. They don't give a shit about helping the poor. They just want to tax the rich because they're bad people. They're evil people who are unhappy and unfulfilled, and they have nothing to live for. So they're taking their resentment and their hatred, and they're directing it at whoever they're instructed to target. And they're being targeted at the rich. They're basically weapons that are being wielded en masse by one segment of the ruling elites to target and take down the other segment. I think it's very interesting, as a quick aside, I think it's very interesting that Peter Thiel is getting all these hit pieces written about him all of a sudden. I mentioned this in the supporting listeners group. I think the fact that we're moving toward this direction, we're moving in the direction of the of libertarian rhetoric and free market and capitalism, all these things becoming, I believe they're going to be championed by the elite, because I think ultimately we've ping-ponged, we've come so far to one side, we can't keep going the woke direction because it'll collapse into complete and utter chaos. And the people who will have the most to lose in that environment are the people at the top. So ultimately, I think that we're going to see things get pulled back the other way, and it's going to give people a lot of optimism. They're going to be, oh, look, there's kind of like a Deus Ex Machina here, where someone's stepping in and they're going to save the day, and there's going to be some type of candidate, some type of major strongman candidate who will appeal to the intellectual dark web club. It will appeal to that type of person. The person who's like, we need to get an adult back into the room. We need to have sane, stable governance. And they're like kind of transitioning into the next age. We're going to sort of move beyond democracy a little bit. We need to sort of take the reins back, and they're going to sell it however they're going to sell it. But ultimately, that's going to be the avenue through which a major tyrant arises. So right now, all of these tax the rich people are mindless NPCs. They're mindless plebs who are being weaponized and wielded toward clearing the pathway for a certain segment of the elites who's going to step out and take control of more and more power. So President Dr. Golden Donut said, wealth is power. The left reveal this. And I just said, when you realize that leftist rhetorical advocacy for the oppressed is nothing but a self-serving ploy for the attainment of personal increase, then you'll begin to see the path forward. One thing that really sets the boomers apart, and the libertarians fall for this exact same thing, is they accept the left's terms that the left sets for itself. So they accept the premise that the left care about oppressed minorities. They accept the premise that the left cares about downtrodden people. They accept the premise that the left actually advocates for victims. And that's not true. It's like self-evidently not true based on the way they actually behave. Look at the way the whole AOC thing, that whole charade should make this very, very plain to you, that all of it is all a self-serving ploy for people who want to obtain their own personal increase. Ultimately, they want freedom. To them, freedom is political power, and they recognize that. And they recognize that the best way to get political power is to join with a movement, with a group of people who are willing to say and do whatever is necessary to win. That's the nature of the opposition. That's the nature of the enemies of liberty. So if you want, this segues us into this next point. If liberty is your goal, as the title says, and you've identified that the people who stand in the way of liberty are people who are self-serving, power-hungry opportunists, you've now laid the groundwork for understanding how you need to move forward. And this should make one thing very clear to you. And this is the main tweet that I wanted to get into today. This lit a bunch of people's brains on fire yesterday. And all of the replies, almost all of the replies that I got on this, all completely missed the point. And in some cases, I might say, "Oh, that's the responsibility of the person who delivered the point for messaging wrong." But in this case here, I phrased what I said very, very specifically, and what I meant is very, very clear in what I said. And I also said it because I knew it would spark exactly this sort of response. And this is very informative. This is a good opportunity to actually kind of like lift the hood and look at what's happening under the hood and understand why it's functioning the way that it is. So the tweet, let me post this up here real quick. Share the screen. Chrome tab. Is it this one? Okay. So let's get this up here where we can. I think this can work here. All right. Hopefully, I need to go watch this later on and see if this is actually visible when I set it up like this. Hopefully it is. If not, then we'll set it up differently next time. So, right here. So I actually got blocked by the person I was quote tweeting shortly after I sent this tweet, which is kind of funny. I don't think getting blocked had as much to do with me or what I said as it did with the person who was doing the blocking. But you can go look it up if you want to. I don't want to air them out because I'm not trying to be antagonistic with this. So you can go look and see if you actually want to see what. But I'll just read the tweet. Person said, "Libertarianism says degeneracy should be legal. Libertinism says degeneracy should be socially acceptable." And what I said was advocating that something should be legal is, in effect, advocating that it should be socially acceptable. The libertarian-libertine dichotomy is ultimately a distinction without a difference. That lit a bunch of people's brains on fire. And the response I got, all the responses I got were very predictable. They were basically exactly the sort of thing that I anticipated getting. Now, I got to pause real quick. Buck Johnson in the chat, he just responded to what I'd asked a little bit ago. And he had a very good excuse for not responding. He said, "Sorry, I'm at work. Had to save a kid." For real. Shout out Buck Johnson.
American
Not
hero.
only does he have traps that won't quit, but he's literally in here dropping bombs in the chat and then piecing out, saving little kids, and then coming back. He's basically a real life superhero.
Totally. Since we took this quick aside, and it actually, I think you can connect these things. They're very connectable, in my opinion. Vin texted me why he doesn't think the Free State Project works. It kind of connects a little bit. So
is he listening to us right now?
No.
Or did you ask him? This is from. He didn't just text you right now. This is from.
Yeah, we're going back and forth. There's a time zone difference, but I was like, "Hey, wouldn't this be a funny meme?" He gets back to me, "Hey, what's about the Free State Project?" Vin. Okay. So why the Free State Project doesn't work? It values diversity of thoughts / strategy. So there is an eternal gridlock on doing all but the most non-controversial activities, i.e. hosting conferences where many diverse approaches are presented. All political movements to be successful require a singleness of purpose from the members.
Mm-hmm.
Prime example, half of the Free State Project members literally think voting is violence. The other half are running for state rep. Pretty good.
Yeah, that does tie in. Yeah. You're right, that does. Because there's this So this dichotomy that the person here tweeting, the dichotomy that they pointed out, that libertarianism says that degeneracy should be legal, and libertinism says degeneracy should be socially acceptable. Libertinism is really just radical individualism. Libertinism is essentially like moral relativism, that no one person can say what is what is good, what is bad. It's up to everybody else to individually choose for themselves, and they can all be guided by that, which is really just kind of the spirit of liberalism. This is like Western materialist, rationalist empiricism. They like completely denies the mystical, says it's all this just complete. We're just basically animals who are just here. We just have this life. This is all that matters, and meaning and purpose is for each of us to figure out on his own. You can believe that. That's fine. I don't care if you believe that. I think you're wrong. I think that that you're gonna wind up with very unpleasant things happening to you if you believe that. But I'm not here to make you not believe that. I'm just here to point out what the implications of that are. It's like, let's apply this to the real world and see what happens. So what you wind up getting is that what's this? There's this what was it Solzhenitsyn? Someone who said that it was like unhealthy families are unhealthy in lots of ways, but the healthy ones are all healthy in the same way. It was something like that. And you'll notice this, that the stable, healthy, happy families all seem to have the same sorts of things in common. And the deranged, incoherent, fractured, broken up families kind of, there's lots of different reasons. There's going to be a whole bunch of different things that drove them apart. But the ones that are doing it the right way, they all have the same sorts of things in common. So the libertine perspective, the to each his own, there is no absolute truth. There is no absolute morality. Everyone's for each person to say. Everything needs to be voluntary. This whole like the essence, the spirit of liberalism. The effect of that put into the real world is that the people I was just talking about, the ones who, if you create a vacuum of power, they will step into it for their own self-serving reasons. They will take advantage of an environment like that. They will take control of it. If nobody else is using it, they're going to step in and take it. Free markets in morality, free markets in goods, free markets in anything aren't free. If it's free, you're the product. If the market is free, yes, the market has been secured by someone. Someone paid for it. You don't get free markets. Markets can't be free without somebody making them free. And they make them free by force. So back to my tweet here. So the general response that I got, this guy deleted his tweet. Let me see if I can find an actual response here that is useful to illustrate what I'm saying.
Nah, straw man, dude. Who gives a shit?
Right. There's a few people that came out. I blocked so many people from this because that was another purpose of this tweet, is that you put out a tweet like this because it's like a bat signal for retards, and I wanted to pull them out so that I could nail them. So I don't care if you disagreed with me. Lots of people in here that disagreed. Almost everyone disagreed, but it's the ones who came at me all aggro, or like just responded with like a stupid GIF or something. People who were just like low quality commentators. Those are the ones that I blocked because I want to ensure that I only get the best interactions with my tweets because it makes my experience better and it makes the experience of the people who follow me better. So here's a decent one. This guy says wrong. Two separate issues. The legal question is, should the state use force to compel or forbid this? And the social question is answered by each individual according to their own values. There is no blanket social acceptability. So he's speaking directly to the thing I was just talking about. Because we've determined that the ultimate Satan is a state that determines things for people. We need to go to the exact opposite extreme and say that the only thing that's good is to have nobody that determines anything for anyone except for themselves. Radical individualism, It's all, which is the definition of chaos. There is no better definition of chaos than everybody all going their own direction. That is chaos. And actually, if you're someone who's listened to Lord of Spirits, and they talk about the creation story, and they talk about the Spirit of the Lord being over the face of the deep, or the face of the waters, in biblical mythology speak, that's waters there is not necessarily literally water. It's like chaos, over the face of chaos. And chaos is something that has no order. There's no order to it at all. To create is to take chaos and create order. It's to bring order out of the chaos. And that's what life is. Life is order drawn out of chaos. Or you could say imposed upon chaos. Either way. So when you're creating, you're actually creating order. That's what you're creating. Order is life. Life and order are synonymous. God is absolute order because he's absolute life. He is being. He is that which is. This is the Christian conception of God. So the correlation or the distinction between order and chaos is the distinction between life and death. If you are a living being, you have, in this world, you have a body. Your body is ordered. Your body isn't chaotic. If your body devolved into chaos, it would disappear. It wouldn't function. You're defined. Your life is defined by your order. But what this guy didn't get, and what a lot of other people, here's another one. Saying you shouldn't be jailed for something isn't endorsing doing that something. Society has many taboos. You, I, and everyone who's ever lived knows that. Another person, no, it means you shouldn't be punished for it. People cannot like something and not think, let's force this guy to pay money or put him in a cage for it. Another one, the only way to believe this is also believing morality emanates from the state, which is an inherently socialist idea of morality. All of these people missed at least two very important words in this tweet. The first one is advocating. The second one is in effect. The second word is in effect. I didn't say making something legal is the same as making it socially acceptable. I didn't say making it socially acceptable makes it legal. I didn't say either of those things. I said advocating that something should be legal is, in effect, advocating that it should be socially acceptable. This is a tweet about advocacy. This is not a tweet about whether something should or should not be legal. This tweet isn't advocating for anything. This tweet is just a description of reality. When libertarians use this rhetoric, when they use this, where was that one here? Saying you shouldn't be jailed for something isn't endorsing that something. When you put yourself on the side of the people who are doing the thing that you don't support, you are supporting them, in effect. You could say, well, I don't support them. I just think that nobody else should do this. The effect of what you're doing is supporting them.
The end
People
result.
don't care what your intentions are. Go ahead.
No, I was saying just the end result.
Right.
Like, yeah, I think like giving the benefit of the doubt, I think like people might read that and just think that it's like Matt is using like just a connecting phrase that people use to just fill up words or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, but like he's
I'm using the word for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. In effect, the effect of it is this. This is what happens when you do that. It has this effect. I just realized that this here was not showing up on there properly. So hopefully it hasn't been all cockeyed this whole time. This was so shout out Aaron from Timeline Earth. Go ahead.
No, I was isn't it? No, shout out Aaron from Timeline Earth.
He of course got it because he is Bay. He said every quote legalized blank take is a signal to the libertines affected by that law of your solidarity with them and a counter signal to those that don't approve. When you say that, I was gonna use the most provocative possible example, but I think I won't use that because I don't want to go down the Thaddeus Russell path. When you say that XYZ drugs should be legal, I don't think everybody should do it, but it should be legal for anybody to do. You've made that qualification thinking that it differentiates yourself from the people who say this should be legal and everyone should do it. But you differentiating yourself from that, you declaring that your intentions are different than those other people, doesn't change anything in the effect of your actual words. The effect of your actual words is drug use should be acceptable in society. Again, I'm not advocating for a counter. I'm not advocating for a position here. I'm describing what's happening because I'm trying to create a baseline for us to understand the world around us so that we can interact with it effectively.
And what someone would say to that with like the, like a basic bitch libertarian argument is that, you're going to give the state this power to make this drug illegal. They use it for their own corrupt reasons, and they're going to, put people in cages. They're going to put their enemies in cages, and like, yes, that is an accurate description of, power and what power certainly can do. But I think what the post-libertarian, I'm going to keep using the word, interpretation might be, is that your issue is with the system, how fucked up the system is. And so just because this is the only system that you've ever experienced does not necessarily mean that every system would function the same way, in that, indeed the nature of man is such that things would tend towards that. But that's why there's this missing piece of like what needs to underpin in some capacity any system that exists. So it's like this commitment to making everything a problem, like with the state or whatever. But then some progressive or whatever would like come up to you and kind of say, all right, taxes are terrible, but what if you paid taxes and all the roads were perfect and everything, all your needs were met, and you had this, that, and the third, and blah 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 blah. And they're presenting you with kind of a utopia. And if you're ideologically committed, you have to find a way to say no to that you would reject that, when there's not a great reason for that. You have to do some gymnastics and kind of say, well, that, it's impossible because, the government would, over time turn into this, and, because that's what governments do, and all governments are the same. But it's like, that's certainly this system. And there have been systems like throughout time that did not function exactly in that way. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to like anticipate what someone was going to say.
Yeah.
And then kind of try to zoom out from it. It's like the bitch of doing a podcast where you're figuring out ideas on the fly.
Right.
Talking.
We're thinking out loud.
Yeah. And that's kind of that's how we started this shit.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You want to think on the internet together? It's kind of, it was off-putting how I think we look more different now. But when we started, God, we looked the same. Like a lot. Yeah.
That's true. I wonder why it's different.
With all this stuff that we're like talking about, right? Because we're like getting back in like the spiritual side of things a little bit. Isn't it amazing how like when you look at the Bible and you interpret things from that point of view, just how much simpler everything is, as opposed to like looking at like, when I was trying to, articulate that, well, if you're a libertarian, maybe you need to expand your consciousness to accept this idea that, you have two non-ideal, and it's like fighting. But when in actuality, it's just like you can kind of describe, if you look at the Bible as like just like a way to live, or like how to live in the world, like just even from a purely utilitarian perspective, you could take a look at like, I shared it with Cyprian. I'm not sure if he's like grabbed onto it or not, but just like the idea of like the flood. And the flood is coming, and that you need to build the ark to protect yourself. So it's not like I'm trying to go to the beach today. It's like, no, sorry, man, the flood's coming. It's going to be a problem. So like, it's like, man, God, that's a real black pill right now. And I'm not trying to hear that.
Right. It's like, it's reality.
Yeah, man.
Like, we're just describing the way the world looks. Like, yeah, you look outside and, oh man, it looks like it's going to rain today. Oh man, that's such a black pill. Why are you trying to get me down, bro?
Yeah, no, go climb that aluminum ladder. But yeah, like
Right.
that's kind of like, I don't know. That's why it's like we are all dealing with like enlightenment brains, and like a really great man, Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning book.
Yes.
Just the first little bit of that, kind of like talking about how, when you're looking at these ancient cultures, they have a different brain than you, and it doesn't mean that they were dum-dums.
Yes.
In effect.
There's there is a real quick. Let me finish this point, and then there's another tweet that I wanna that relates to that. Let me pull it up right now while I'm thinking
I have
about
literally nothing else to say. I'm silent C from now on. So
it. I'm getting close to there. I'm almost run out. Surprisingly, I actually run out of words occasionally.
but not in the private listeners group.
No.
The YouTube chat just continues on for about 24/7.
On and on and on and on. Okay, here it is. On and on and on is actually my timeline that I was talking about. So just to finish this tweet from Aaron, he said that when you say legalize XYZ, you're signaling to the libertines affected by that law of your solidarity with them and a countersignal to those that don't approve. That's just the perception, and any disclaimer about contrary personal preference can and usually is ignored by both sides. Not talking about argumentation ethics or logic or reasoning, which are fake and gay spooks, just what the consequences of your public support or opposition to the legality of degeneracy results in purely materially. This is just a description of reality. So the responses we get, oh, so what are you saying? People should be thrown into cages? No, I'm not advocating for anything yet. Because I don't know what to advocate for. Because I care about the end, not the means. Libertarians are focused on the means. They're focused on this we have to act like libertarians, and then we'll get liberty. Acting like libertarians does not create liberty. So do you care about liberty, or do you care about acting like a libertarian? This is the question. How do you solve this problem? I'm not saying there's a clear answer to it. I'm saying, how do you solve this problem? Because acting like a libertarian, if I evaluate the real world effects of acting like a libertarian acts in 2021, I see us moving further and further away from actual liberty. How do you square this circle? How do you solve this problem? So the people that are like, oh, so you're just going to want to lock people in cages. I'm saying that if that's the problem you're trying to solve, advocating for legalization is not going to solve that problem. By advocating for legalization, you're compounding the problem, because the problem is not people using drugs, and the problem is not people putting people using drugs in cages. The problem is a morally bankrupt society with its priorities and its incentives all fucked to high heaven. That's the problem. And the rest of this stuff is all just consequences of it. The problem is a lack of leadership and a lack of moral fiber. Sure, all of this stuff might sound fluffy, woo-woo, whatever. This is just a description of reality. And it doesn't care what you think of it. This is just the nature of the beast. So if your goal is to actually help people who are locked in cages, go help people who are locked in cages. But if your goal is to prevent people from being locked in cages in the future, then we have to start trying to skin this cat a different way. And I'm trying to find people who are interested in actually doing that work, who are interested in actually building a new parallel economy, who are interested in building the technology of the future world, both the physical, actual technology and the social technology. I think a lot of it is stuff that we can just draw from the past. I think our ancestors solved a lot of these problems. Right. Material prescriptions to a spiritual sickness. That's what libertarianism is. Libertarianism is a material prescription to a spiritual sickness. 2021 libertarianism.
I'm so happy that he said that argumentation ethics or logic or reasoning, he called them fake and gay spooks. That makes me so happy. I think my limitation that I wouldn't, in like most conversations, I wouldn't use the term like fake and gay spooks, prevents me from saying it concisely. But that's how to say it, right there.
Yeah.
My face lit up when I heard you say that.
I saw it.
Oh my God. Aaron is bae.
So I think I can't remember. I know there's this other tweet that I was gonna share, but I don't think there was anything else directly related to this subject that um that I wanted to get into necessarily. That was the gist of it. Again, this comes back to um when we talk about living in Ancapistan in your heads, because this was
Yeah, that was a term that we came up and shared with Pete Quinones.
yeah, yeah.
But I think people get my humor. They know I didn't refer like the flood to Vin, right?
And if they don't, then fuck them.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
I said, well, yeah, this living in Ancapistan in your heads. This is what it is. Living in Ancapistan in your heads is when you evaluate your prescribed actions based on their intentions rather than their consequences. The libertarian world, Ancapistan, what people have viewed as Ancapistan, like the desired goal, a goal where, or a world where property rights are respected absolutely, where there's no oppression, there's no state, there's no where everyone respects the nap. That sort of world is a goal. That's the desired end. But you need to find the means that will get you to that end. So when you look at the world, you can't live entirely inside your brain and never look at the consequences of what you're actually doing. That's the living in Ancapistan in your heads. You have to look at the actual consequences of your actions, the actual consequences of your policies, of your prescriptions, of whatever you're doing. You have to view the actual consequences, and to understand them, you have to have empathy. Because you have to understand how other people are wired. You have to understand what other people value. And you have to value what other people value precisely or simply because you want something from them. You want them to value your world. You want them to want to live in the world you want to live in. If that's the case, you have to present it to them in a way that they're willing to buy it, which means you have to understand what they want and you have to offer that to them. If you're trying to sell liberty to people, they don't want it. They want a state that will do something for them. So if you're trying to get to liberty, you have to start selling people something to give them an incentive to buy in to the process of creating liberty. I'm not saying you have to create a product. I'm speaking like metaphorically. You can create a product. That's a very easy way to do it. It's a great way to start. Productize something about your own expertise or your own personality or whatever. Productize it, sell it, create value for someone else. Like this is like supposed to be all about capitalism, right? Free markets. Do you just talk about free markets, or do you participate in it? Do you participate in the market? Do you establish yourself as someone of value who has something to contribute? Because if you don't, then nobody else has any reason to buy what you're selling. Populibs and I are working on. He sent me a bunch. He and I were going back and forth, and he sent me some stuff that I need to get caught up on and really process, because it's significant. It's very significant. We're going to be talking about it here in the future. But when I said that we're interested in slaying sacred cows, we have a sacred cow that we are going to slay. Slay queen. We are going to torch a sacred cow. And I think it's good. I think it's necessary. Because I care about liberty. I care about getting to that point. I care about getting to a world that looks like that. And I want to actually get there. I don't just want to sit around with a bunch of people and circle jerk about what it might look like, and mock all of the people who I need something from to get to that point, mock all of them for not being smart enough to actually see how right I am about everything.
So good.
So, last tweet. How do I switch this? I think I can go right here. I have to just stop it. Okay. So,
ooh, that's a little close.
What's up, boo? This one here. Why does it do this?
Man, anyone who listens to that, I know Matthew's putting these up on in podcast format, but if you don't watch on YouTube,
yeah, you're missing out. You're missing out on the experience.
Yeah.
So this one here, just this picture. Let me see if I can. I'll actually just make this full size here. So for those of you who can't see, it's some kind of like a cathedral or some sort of very ornate ancient building, and the caption on the person who tweeted it, they said, when you realize you're walking among the ruins of what was once a greater civilization. And just look at this for a minute. Just kind of imagine being part of the why does it do that? Imagine being part of the building process, creating this just
slave labor, man.
This sort of thing just doesn't get built anymore.
Yeah.
There is no excellence in architecture, in building. There's like imagine the process it would take, like the building of the cathedrals. Imagine having a society that was willing to invest in something like that. That you could bring the society together and have everyone pitch in and believe in this goal and create it and build it. I'm not foolish or naive enough to believe that everyone who participated in the building of the cathedrals was all just like hunky-dory, like doing it for funsies because they honestly believed in it. I don't believe that necessarily. But just to have a society that could build something like this, I just imagine that. This doesn't exist today because this is gonna trigger some people. This doesn't exist today because of capitalism, because of the incentive structure of capitalism.
Oh man.
The incentive structure of capitalism drives people toward creating things for reasons other than excellence. It's just what rises to the top is not things of greatness and excellence and grandeur. It just doesn't happen. What we're seeing right now is a collapse of a global economy because the economy was optimized for just-in-time production. Like every last little buffer in the economy has been scraped out, has been peeled out of it just to maximize every last little dollar out of it.
Man, where was this critique when our special guest on the members only stream tried to goad you into saying this in front of Andrew?
That I wish this would have been. I wish this would have been there then.
What the hell?
My comment on it was, we live in the wealthiest nation in world history. People say that a lot. Oh, we live in the wealthiest nation in world history. This is the wealthiest country ever. You know, we're just drowning in wealth. I think it rings pretty hollow when you actually personally encounter the works of prior generations. They may not have had iPhones, but they had stuff a lot better than iPhones. I had a really interesting conversation a couple years ago with Hotep Jesus when he was out here in LA for Joe Rogan. Amy and I took him out to dinner and we talked for hours, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours, just talking about all kinds of stuff. It was one of the best conversations I've ever had. But one thing that he said, that he pointed out, was we were talking about phones, and I said something about like this being a fantastic piece of technology or something like that, or like something having to do with progress. Like this is the human race, like evidence of the greatness of the human race or something like that. And he said, I don't think this is progress. This is going backwards. This is trapping human beings, enslaving human beings to something that's replacing things that would be better. It's replacing better things. It's a crutch. It's amazing what you can do with it, but what are the effects of it? How much worse off are we because of these devices? What have we sacrificed? But when you look at the world purely in terms of material goods, purely in terms of maximization of profit, you lose out on things of higher value. And yeah, I want beautiful things like this to get built again. There was a good response to this. One person said, is wealth built upon plastic consumption actually wealth? Shout out Apex Sim Maps. Said, hint, no. Another guy said, imagine the cathedral you could build with the combined wealth and labor of 3 generations of an American city. And I said, imagine a society willing to rally around a generational task like that. This is, he says, what I cannot imagine is how some have the audacity to call such a society the dark ages of a region. The only reason that people call it the Dark Ages is so that they can say the Enlightenment came after it. That's the only reason that you would call it the Dark Ages. It wasn't the Dark Ages. You know what the Dark Ages were? The Dark Ages was the 20th. The Dark Ages was the 20th century. A century of capitalism and materialism and global expansion. Greatest technological innovation in human history.
Don't you little motherfucker. God damn it.
You gotta show her. You gotta pick her up and show her to the fans.
I'll tweet it out.
Okay. Go at Messina Inc.
I have a producer.
And you can see his producer.
Yeah.
Producer Cleo.
Very chocolate. Oh.
My producer isn't in here right now. I don't think. She might be over under the bed. Yeah, no, the only reason you would call it the Dark Ages is so that you could retroactively claim the Enlightenment was progress. The Enlightenment wasn't progress. It was
Jesus Christ. Dude.
Oh, man. Oh, good job, Amy. One could say capitalism is the religion of the autist. It thrives off functionality above all else. That's my wife. I'm so proud of you. She's very much resisted this like cultural use of the term autism because she works with like actually autistic kids. And I am in awe of her for the work that she's able to do because it's the patience and the compassion and the intelligence and the insight and the ability to engage with people in complicated social interactions. It's off the charts. The type of work that she does is something I could never do. I just don't have that skill set. So I'm so impressed with her. So I understand why she has resisted. She doesn't like people using autistic and autism and stuff as like like it's not because it's not a slur. People aren't using it as a slur. They're using it to describe this real phenomenon of like social awkwardness and like the inability to connect on an empathetic level and like hyper materialism, all these sorts of things. That's what autism is coming to mean. And people understand it when you use that. So it's a useful word.
It used to bug me quite a bit too. And especially it kind of became like almost like trendy to be like, yeah, I'm autistic, you know, or just like in that sort of self-deprecating, I'm so autistic.
Right.
I can't. That bugged me quite a bit.
People do it just for like they're what do you call it? Like fetishizing their own mental dysfunction.
Yeah. And like I'm so ADD, you know. It's like, are you so ADD? There's just fucking crippling ADD out there.
It's funny, the whole thing, like
let me take a cat video. Sorry, just kidding.
I don't watch cat videos. I take cat videos. When the whole like SJW thing first started happening, I remember thinking about like they would say, "Oh, this is like triggering. I'm triggered by this," and I was like, "Man, imagine being someone who actually has PTSD." And actually gets triggered by things like, you have to have a trigger warning there before you talk about something that might offend me. But like, imagine someone who actually gets triggered by things, seeing this very traumatic thing becoming just a trope that people wield. Again, back to my earlier tweet, people just wield this idea of advocacy for the victimized or the downtrodden. They just wield it because it's a useful political tool for accumulating their own personal increase. So there's I'm not saying anything super insightful here necessarily, but the SJW crowd was actually victimizing the people who have suffered from these things by appropriating their culture, appropriating their phenomenon, and then just kind of cheapening it and giving it to any whiny little bitch who hates her dad.
But good thing that that basic bitch libertarians will look for any opportunity to call veterans not heroes, even though that they would be some of their best allies.
Right.
Listen, you know what I mean? It's just like I don't know if I think Mike Tyson's the greatest boxer in the history of time, but if I met him, I'd say that he was. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Have a little bit of self-awareness. Popular Liberty says capitalism cannibalized and squandered that social fortune that our ancestors accumulated. Yeah, we don't see the counterfactual. We don't see the world that we would live in today if it hadn't been for the rise of the materialist empiricism that is necessary for capitalism as a system to thrive.
Andrew, where was this when our special guest asked you specifically?
Yeah, Andrew.
Andrew has such vitriol for our special guest in the members only stream that he wouldn't dare say that in front of her.
You know what I just realized? What we need to have as a recurring segment in the supporting listeners group. This is the last thing I'll say, and then I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
We need to have regular voice chats where different people show up.
Yes, we do.
Different personalities.
Maybe one just to
There's
start.
Lots to choose from.
The most, yeah. Well, that's true too. Yeah. But yeah. One of them would be a ringer.
Andrew said pearls before swine. That's great. All righty, folks. Well, we've kept you here for over 2 hours, so we appreciate you sticking with us. This has been a fun show. I've
if you want the fun to continue, and I do stand to benefit from it. Full disclosure, but the supporting listeners group, it really is a lot of fun. I don't mean to push it too hard, but I don't know. I'm about to have a Zoom call with a member that I didn't really mean to solicit in the supporting listener. I didn't even realize I was doing it at the time, but I was just so fucking broke. I'm just like, hey guys.
What Steven's trying to say is that he's a whore.
Right, and so I'm going to whore myself out yet again at the end of the show. But I've been doing a lot of video editing for other people. I usually only do it for myself. And I know that there's people out there who may need some video editing. And so if you do, hit me up. You can email me at stevenmessinaphotography@gmail.com. And I'll take care of you. I'll do a good job. And I'll do it at a what was the word? I'll extend man, I had a better word for it than discount that I was going to use, but it escapes me right now. But I'll do it cheaper than I usually do. And also there were some people who were asking about camera stuff, some other people maybe in this chat, maybe not. And if you're looking for camera setup type shit, I don't really have anything good going on today. Hit me up, Twitter or something like that, if you're looking to get some setup tips.
He knows what he's doing. Sometimes he has sometimes his setup doesn't show off his actual talent, but that doesn't speak to his talent. It speaks to the busyness of his lifestyle.
That's right. I just got done making a lawyer hourly for editing this fucking documentary. So not too concerned about my goddamn internet show. Lawyer money. What a great phrase that is.
All righty, folks. Well, PalomaVerdeCBD.com. Use promo code KING. Get 25% off any order over $75. Subscribestar.com/KingPilled. Sign up. Join our supporting listeners group. Come chat with us. Twitter.com/RealKingPilled. RealKingPilled on Twitter. Messina Inc. on Twitter.
You can see my producer if you follow me on Messina Inc. Actually, I have a little video of her.
And also, if you want, you can follow me on Instagram. Also, Real King Pilled. I post there occasionally, and I mostly just kind of every once in a while, if I'm really bored and I ran out of stuff on other platforms, then I go look there and then see a bunch of people have been sending me messages, and I didn't realize it. So then I go watch them, and then it'll be another week before they all accumulate again. I tend to be a fairly difficult guy to get a hold of. So if you're in the supporting listeners group, that means that you're going to get a lot more ready access to me than anybody else. So I appreciate you guys. This has been a lot of fun. Share the show if you got something out of it. If you know someone who you think would benefit from what we're talking about, if you especially if I'll say this very self-servingly, if you know someone who would make us better, who would teach us something new, someone who values the same thing that we do and has an outside the box take, please refer them to us as well, or us to them, I guess, whichever way it works. We're going to be, since we've got the show coming up on the podcast platforms here very shortly, then we're going to start doing interviews. We're going to have some guests. We've got several different people lined up. Some fairly, I'd say fairly significant names. People you'll really enjoy us talking to. So we appreciate you guys' support. Like, share, subscribe. Supporting listeners group, Paloma Verde CBD, Twitter, Instagram. Yeah, I think that's it.